The flickering fluorescent lights of the hospital hallway seemed to mock my anxiety. Quincy, a 43-year-old architect in Atlanta, paced back and forth, the sterile scent of antiseptic doing little to calm my churning stomach. My wife Leonie was in surgery. A routine procedure, they'd said, but routine didn't quell the fear that clawed at my throat. Leonie and I had been married for 15 years. We met in college, two bright-eyed students with dreams as big as the Georgia sky. She was a vibrant artist, her paintings bursting with color and life, a stark contrast to my more structured, pragmatic world of blueprints and building codes. Yet somehow we fit. We built a life, a beautiful home in the suburbs, filled with laughter, shared dreams, and the comfortable silence of two souls deeply intertwined. Or so I thought. The first crack appeared subtly, almost imperceptibly. Leonie started spending more time at her studio, claiming a surge of inspiration. Late nights became the norm. I attributed it to her dedication, her passion for her art. I even encouraged her, proud of her ambition. But then came the changes. A new perfume, a more meticulous attention to her appearance, a guardedness in her eyes that I couldn't quite decipher. I dismissed my unease as paranoia, the product of a tired mind. Then came the phone. It was a Tuesday evening. Leonie was at her studio as usual. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "She's happier now. You were holding her back." My blood ran cold. I stared at the message, my mind struggling to comprehend its meaning. Who was this? What were they talking about? I tried calling Leonie, but her phone went straight to voicemail. The next few hours were a blur of panic and dread. I drove to her studio, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The studio was dark, the door locked. I pounded on the door, shouting her name, but only silence answered me. I returned home, a knot of anxiety twisting in my gut. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I decided to check her email. I knew it was a breach of privacy, a violation of trust, but I couldn't ignore the gnawing suspicion that had taken root in my mind. Her password was the same as always, our anniversary date. I logged in, my heart pounding in my chest. The inbox was filled with the usual spam and promotional emails. But then I saw it. An email from a name I didn't recognize. Declan. The subject line read, "Tonight." I clicked on the email, my hands trembling. The message was short and simple. "Can't wait to see you. 8 p.m., the usual place." My world tilted on its axis. Declan. Who the hell was Declan? And what was the usual place? I scrolled through the rest of her emails, each one a dagger twisting in my heart. There were dozens of them, spanning months, filled with intimate details, stolen moments, and declarations of love. Declan was a local gallery owner, a suave, charismatic man who had recently started showcasing Leonie's work. He was everything I wasn't: confident, artistic, and seemingly adoring of my wife. The truth hit me like a physical blow. Leonie was having an affair with Declan. The woman I loved, the woman I had built my life with, was betraying me in the most profound way imaginable. The anger that surged through me was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was a white-hot rage that threatened to consume me. I wanted to confront her, to scream at her, to demand an explanation. But I knew that wouldn't accomplish anything. I needed to be calm, to be strategic. I decided to follow her. The next evening I waited outside her studio, my car parked a block away. At 7:30 p.m. she emerged, looking radiant in a dress I had never seen before. She got into her car and drove away. I followed, keeping a safe distance. She drove to a secluded restaurant on the outskirts of town. I parked across the street and watched as she entered. A few minutes later, Declan arrived. I watched them through the window, their faces illuminated by candlelight. They laughed, they touched, they looked at each other with an intimacy that made my stomach churn. I had seen enough. I walked back to my car, my mind racing. I couldn't confront her here, not in public. I needed to gather my thoughts to formulate a plan. When Leonie returned home that night, I was waiting for her. She walked in, her face flushed, her eyes sparkling. "Hi, honey," she said, her voice a little too cheerful. "How was your evening?" "I know," I said, my voice flat. "I know about Declan." Her face paled. What are you talking about?" she stammered. "Don't insult my intelligence," I said. "I read your emails. I followed you tonight. I know everything." She burst into tears. "Quincy, I can explain," she sobbed. "Explain what?" I said, my voice rising. Explain how you could betray me like this. Explain how you could lie to my face for months. Explain how you could throw away 15 years of marriage for some gallery owner. It just happened, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't mean for it to happen. I was feeling neglected, unappreciated. He paid attention to me. He made me feel alive again. Neglected, I said, incredulous. Unappreciated. I have always supported you, loved you, cherished you. How could you say that? I know, she said, her voice choked with sobs. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. Please, Quincy, forgive me. I'll do anything to make it up to you. Forgiveness was the furthest thing from my mind. The pain was too deep, the betrayal too profound. I couldn't imagine ever trusting her again. I want you to leave, I said, my voice cold. I want you out of this house by tomorrow morning, she pleaded, she begged, she promised to change. But my mind was made up. The trust was broken, the love was gone. There was nothing left to salvage. The next morning she was gone. The house felt empty, hollow, like a shell of its former self. I wandered through the rooms, touching the objects that held memories of our life together. The wedding photos, the souvenirs from our travels, the paintings she had created over the years. Each one a reminder of what we had lost. I threw myself into my work, burying my pain in blueprints and building codes. But the memories haunted me, the images of Leonie and Declan together replaying in my mind like a broken record. Weeks turned into months. The divorce was finalized. Leonie moved to another state, hoping for a fresh start. I heard through mutual friends that her relationship with Declan had fizzled out. He had moved on to another artist, another conquest. Karma, I supposed. As for me, I was left with the wreckage of our shattered marriage. The pain was still there, a dull ache in my heart. But I was also starting to feel something else, a glimmer of hope, a sense of possibility. One evening I was working late at the office when I received a phone call. It was from the hospital. Leonie had been in an accident. She was in critical condition. I rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding in my chest. I found her in the ICU, hooked up to machines, her face pale and bruised. The doctor told me she had been driving under the influence and had crashed into a tree. Her injuries were severe. I sat by her bedside, watching her, my mind reeling. Despite everything, I couldn't help but feel a surge of compassion. She was still the woman I had loved, the woman I had shared my life with. She opened her eyes, her gaze meeting mine. "Quincy," she whispered, her voice weak. "I'm here," I said, taking her hand. "I'm so sorry," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I ruined everything. It's okay," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Just focus on getting better." She squeezed my hand, her eyes closing. I sat there for hours, watching her, praying for her. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that I couldn't abandon her. Not now. Not when she needed me the most. Leonie recovered slowly but surely. The accident had been a wake-up call for her. She quit drinking, started therapy, and began to rebuild her life. She never asked for my forgiveness, but she didn't have to. Her actions spoke louder than words. We never rekindled our romance, but we forged a new kind of relationship. A friendship built on honesty, respect, and a shared history. We were no longer husband and wife, but we were still connected, bound together by the threads of our past. And as I sat in that hospital hallway, waiting for news of her surgery, I realized that forgiveness wasn't about condoning her actions. It was about releasing myself from the burden of anger and resentment. It was about accepting the past and moving forward with hope in my heart. The surgeon finally emerged, his face etched with fatigue. "She's going to be okay," he said. The surgery was successful. A wave of relief washed over me. I closed my eyes, offering a silent prayer of gratitude. Leonie was going to be okay. And so was I. We both had a long road ahead of us, but we would face it together, as friends, as survivors, as human beings who had learned the hard way that love and forgiveness are the most powerful forces in the world.